All right. Well, welcome back to Red Dead Redemption 2. Oh, wait, no, wait, sorry. Sorry. Blew my wad right there. I'm sorry. Sorry. It's Chris.
Kind of sounded like Jim Carrey there with the opening.
It's
Alrighty, video game players.
yeah. Alrighty then. It is pretty. Trust me, I'm very aware of the all right opening. I do it same thing on my sports podcast too, but it's kind of a habit. It's kind of hard to break. It's like breathing.
Yeah, at least you're not saying, "Hey guys, hey guys, welcome to makeup tutorial."
Hey guys, welcome back. Well, hey, it's Chris Frank Games. This is a video game podcast with myself, Chris Stotts, and himself, Frank White. Frank, how's it going?
It's going good. Just two guys sitting in dark basements. It looks like
Yeah.
On different parts of the country.
Two guys in the shroud of darkness. Two pale, pasty guys talking about video games, like back in the savannah, back in the day.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we are.
It's everything you need.
Yep, and plus some. And plus some. So we will talk about video games this evening, including the big Red Dead 2 release. And Frank is going to give his impression. Oh, no. That's not
It's
going to
not midnight yet.
That's not going to happen. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some other stuff. We'll talk about the big Kotaku article on Red Dead Redemption 2, just to make you feel guilty about buying it just in time. And then I got some other news. Of course, we got the games we've been playing. Very exciting times. Very exciting show. A lot lined up.
It is. I'm nodding now because we're on YouTube too.
Yeah.
So you can see. Yeah.
And of course, enjoy the show on iTunes. And if you ever want to watch the show, we do it usually live on Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. Central, and 7 p.m.
What is time
Western.
Anyway.
Yeah.
It's
All right, and then you
Thursday
can always watch a replay of it. And hey, you know what? YouTube videos have basically replaced my podcast in the morning now because I'm starting to get a little tired of these podcasts. But it's nice to just put on a YouTube video for like an hour long about some sort of history subject and just let it play. So there you are, folks.
Or just an hour long, or no, you got to go a 10-hour-long video about where it's just a camera on the front of a train going through Norway.
Yeah. Well, I have watched that intersection in Jackson, Wyoming, or something like that. I won't turn that on sometimes, but I've turned that on for like a second. All right. This is not weird YouTube videos. This is Chris Frank Games, and we're going to talk about games. God damn it, including Red Dead 2. As we record this, it's Thursday night, and it comes out tonight at midnight. Is that correct? Is that what it is?
Yeah, presumably, and hopefully, are they letting people pre-download? Because I feel like if they're not, the internet is gonna really struggle in the early hours this morning.
Yeah. Who knows? I hope no one actually has to do any work when that hits. It might crash anyways.
They clogged the pipes.
Well, certainly a lot of people have the game early. A lot of YouTubers, are playing it. A lot of the game outlets, they're playing it, streaming it, and all this stuff. Now, Frank, we were talking last week about the mom and pop stores, if they got it or not, and you weren't sure what you're gonna do. So did you not? You're not gonna get it. You're gonna wait until your store gets it, or
they're
what?
gonna call me apparently.
So have you got an update on that yet?
I have not. So, but I'm out of town this weekend anyway. So hopefully it's there Monday.
So it kind of works out.
Yeah.
So your conscience is clean out of convenience, out of your schedule or something like that. That's nice.
Conscience schmoncience. There's, as Sonic the Hedgehog says, there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. So you don't have to feel bad about an individual purchase that you made.
Sonic is a capitalistic person, so of course he's going to say that. Of course you hate your mother and father. All right. Maybe that's a little bit too deep. I'm not sure, but all right. Well, all right. The reviews hit today, Thursday, and I'm starting to get annoyed at these video game websites that stop having these numbers. I don't know. I'm not gonna listen. I'm not gonna read a 5-page review of Red Dead. This ain't 1996. All right.
Well, And what apparent is it a rule now that the bigger the game, the more words you have to write
God,
about it?
yeah,
Like, I mean, I guess on some level that makes sense because you've got more systems to get into. But like, I've read a couple reviews today that were like, thousands of words long, and then they're like, and there's more that we haven't even talked about. Like, we
yeah,
didn't get into the hunting, and
yeah. And it's spread over like 5 pages, and
yeah,
all this stuff. I don't know. The only real review, I mean, I saw Polygon, but they didn't have a score. They don't do that anymore. IGN gave it a 10. I watched the video review, which was 7 minutes long, by the way. I mean, how many horsey scenes?
that is a reasonable. I watched that one. That is a reasonable length for a video review, guys.
Yeah. All right. I will. I'll take that. Yeah, Frank. What kind of? So someone gave it a 7, I guess. Do you know what outlet gave it a 7? That's the
I
controversial
don't
one.
know, but I've heard. Well, like that's the nice thing about like I like the scoreless system because it's really hard when you have very mixed feelings about something to like do the math and be like, well, it's got incredible production values, but the controls are the same old rock star garbage. How do I balance that out in my head? So it's hard to reflect that in one number, even if you got the decimal points in there.
Yeah.
So
What if you do by smiley faces? Is that?
yeah. Well, I like Kotaku that does the even though they tend to be jokey with them, but I like the little box with like the here's pros and here's cons, like with just kind of the bullet points, because it's rare that even a game that you like, it's rare that you know you don't have any little complaints about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and yeah, it sounds like from what I saw today while not working at work was yeah, everyone liked production values, the just sheer scale, the technical competency, the craft, and just the hey, this is AAA games writ massively large on the side of a mountain.
Yeah.
But on the other hand,
You can tell people destroyed their lives making this game for sure.
yeah, it's like, and it's like that, the Spider-Man game with like just the amount of like, wow, they, somebody had to model those shrinking horse testicles and like they, just the effort that has gone into it. Um, but yeah, that on the same token is that like it sounds like they were aiming for realism and immersion and all that good stuff, possibly at the expense of the quality of life things that we expect from video games that respect our time. Like there is fast travel in the game, but it's something that you have to like buy and unlock, and it's limited. And like things like your weapons unequipping because your guy had to take them off to take a bath. Like from it sounds like you've got like two kind of default weapons, and then you can like pile other weapons onto yourself, but they're actually like represented on your body with all the holsters and stuff. And so if like a cutscene for whatever reason needs you to take some of that stuff off, like you have to re-equip everything afterwards, except for like the default like pistol and I think a secondary weapon.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
just like I think the horse has to come to you in real time. Apparently, it doesn't do that. I was surprised to hear that your horse doesn't do the video game like
just
you
appear.
whistle for it and then it just spawns in wherever you're not looking,
Yeah.
like a few feet behind you, and then comes up and it's like, hey, I was already on the way.
You're a nay.
Yeah.
You're a nay.
So now it's apparently like actually like real time. Like you can get too far away from your horse to call it, and things
Yeah.
like that. So
It almost seems like if you play the game longer than 6 hours, some cracks start to appear or something. What a shock.
yeah, or
Kind of like GTA 5 and all these other
Yeah.
games, I guess. Yeah, but
Well, I've been thinking a lot about GTA with all this, and like my like critical assessment of Grand Theft Auto 5 has just like slid so much since like I remember being blown away when I first played it, and like by the time I was done with it, it was just kind of like, yeah, this is okay. And then like thinking back and like playing it again on PS4 for a little bit, it's like, yeah, the more I go back to it, the more I think about it, the more hollow the whole experience
Yeah.
kind of rings in my head. So
Well, it's 5 years
there's
old now, right? It's pretty old now.
yeah,
What you say?
but it's it's Rockstar, so
Yeah.
they've been working on this for 8 years. So I'm sure there's going to be some. I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting mix of like forward thinking, like kind of the future of video games stuff, and then like last generation thinking in other respects, kind of crammed together, butting heads. It's the
Yeah. Maybe like the world is more like advanced, but then maybe the actual doing stuff in the world is maybe not that advanced. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I've heard some complaints about like the animations, like going into cover and stuff. How like the
okay.
animations are so fluid and amazing, but
Speaking of,
they
I'm sorry. Go ahead, finish.
well, it's just all that stuff takes time, and we're so as gamers we want responsiveness. So it's like, yeah, if you hit a button and then like it takes a second for the action to happen because the animation is so involved, like that, that doesn't feel responsive to you
Yeah.
as the player.
Well, speaking of taking cover and all that stuff, in that IGN video where they show like I guess you're coming up on a camp or whatever, and you kill someone and you kind of get into a fight and you take cover behind a tree with the cover system. I had flashbacks from GTA 4 combat system, and I honestly do not get why this game or these games do not get shit on enough for the combat. I mean, it's just I don't think this thing has evolved like at all. You just get a dot in front of you, and it really doesn't look like you get that many different weapons. They sound great, I guess, and all that stuff, but I mean, is there how many weapons do you get? And then also,
I think it's a lot of variations. Like there's a
yeah,
lot of different revolvers, and then there's going to be like a shotgun and a long gun, and like a lot of different versions of that are probably, but I presumably are mild tweaks from each other. You're not getting a gravity gun or a grenade launcher, obviously, in these. Well, it'd be interesting to see what like the most exotic weapon is.
yeah.
You get the bow and arrow though. So.
I was saying just buy the team that did Call of Suarez. Or buy the game or the engine or whatever, and just have those guys do your engine, your fighting engine or whatever. I mean, I can't believe these guys are making so much money, and they don't hire someone that actually knows first-person shooters or third-person shooters.
It's definitely intentional at this point because the whole Max Payne 3 like thing going into like, okay, we made Rockstar owns Max Payne now, and we're gonna make Max Payne 3, which apparently cost a lot of people their bonuses. For we're talking when we get into the suffering pit, but and and Max Payne 3 did not have the best gunplay ever. It was a bit of a step down, but it's like, okay, we've got the Max Payne guys going on it, so surely Grand Theft Auto 5 will finally be the Grand Theft Auto that has non-shitty controls. And it's like, nope. Like they still do that the kind of the stop and pop lock on thing where you leave you left trigger and you pop out of cover, and it's like super duper sticky onto like an enemy.
Yeah.
So then it ends up being like way more efficient, and it looks, that's the thing. I actually saw this in like I think the IGN video. Like you could see him doing this for a couple of the clips, like from behind the cover, of just like you pop out and then shoot and then immediately go back in, and it totally does not look realistic or immersive at all. It's like bloop, 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 bloop. The guy just binary kind of up down up down up down, which is exactly how the combat in GTA 5 and the original Red Dead Redemption were. So that's definitely disappointing.
I don't understand these games. Why can't these games have the big world and all this crap, and then have it still control? Like, I mean, why can't it control like Near Automata or what? Or maybe that's a too drastic an example, but why can't they just get some great third-person controls in there so it feels great instead of this kind of bullshit?
Well, some of it's not just the controls. I think is that if you just get let loose in this game with like free aim, basically, even if like the aiming was tweaked and was up there with like a Gears of War or whatever, it's so hard to see stuff because everyone's so far away and the environments are so detailed with all the foliage, and the enemies end up being like aim bots because
Yeah.
they don't have to deal with like the visual clutter because they are just AIs that know where your location is. Uh, so, because yeah, that's like one of the things that's always made Grand Theft Auto, combat against AI enemies just super frustrating because it's so hard to keep track of where everybody is because it's got that like zoomed out camera and these very detailed environments. So like yeah, I don't even think it's so much that they can't do the controls right, is that they can't figure out how to make the like hyper detailed games they want to make and be able to like they probably tried. They probably took like a more traditional third person shooter framework in the original Red Dead Redemption or maybe a Grand Theft Auto game or maybe this one, and they probably gave it the old college try and it just never could quite
Or maybe the
not
engine.
frustrate people.
Yeah, maybe the engine doesn't handle it moving like the
Well,
camera too fast.
oh, and that's just a problem of these like really really realistic looking video games anyway. Even Spider-Man has this problem, and you've got such generous kind of auto targeting, and it's still really easy to lose track of like a goon, in the melee, and that's got simpler geometry because you're fighting on rooftops and like city streets instead of like a forest.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. All right. So have you actually watched any footage of it, or are you trying to?
just like I watched the IGN review, and I watched a little bit of like Jim Sterling's impressions video, and then I kind of skipped around on the Digital Foundry video because oh my god, those guys are boring. Like,
Yeah.
can you guys just
Bunch
do
of
the
nerds.
5-minute recap video? They go into so much detail.
Yeah, they did two different videos, which we'll talk about here in a second. But yeah, I mean, I watched some guy like playing like a mission or whatever, maybe one of the early missions. I'll say those the Hauser brothers, whoever's writing these games, are really good at, like setting up conflict and like just really just the stories. Like video game stories for the most part are just really not that good, but they set the stuff up really well. But however, it's like how would you guys just make like a 10-hour Western TV show, right? It would be a little bit cheaper, quicker, and you're not ruining people's lives too, as well. So, all right. So the story is probably the best part of the game, I would imagine. All right, so there you go, Red Dead 2, and then hopefully Frank will have played it by next week, and we can get his
Fingers
impressions
crossed.
on that. Yeah, we will.
You're not picking it up tonight. You're not breaking down the doors of the GameStop.
I'm not a big fan of Rockstar games, so for me, it's it's all about the combat. It's like I don't know, it's the combat. It's vigor. I would probably enjoy it, but I'm a hater, Frank. What can I say? I'm a hater. I'm a contrarian.
They are definitely like they have firmly established themselves as their own thing at this point. Like you would never like even though they share a lot of the same kind of tropes, like you would never ever in a million years confuse like a Western, like if they did a Cowboy Assassin's Creed, you would never ever confuse it with a Rockstar game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I guess for an open, I prefer like maybe like an Ubisoft open world game than a GTA. So, all right. Because I mean, they got the greatest tech and all that stuff, but just you're right. It just seems like sometimes the missions and just sometimes the things are just like agonizingly like backwards a little bit. So, all right. What am I? I haven't even played the game, so it's acting like I've played it for 100 hours. All right. And then speaking of Red Dead, Digital Foundry did two videos, an hour total, on the analysis and then the different versions of the game. And no surprise, it looks like the Xbox One X is the best looking one. Pretty much but pretty much locked at 30 frames. Although there are a couple of instances where it drops down a little bit. So it's 30 frames. I guess we have to wait until next gen for 60 frames. I guess.
Well, I think the big thing with that was that it was the Xbox One X was generally locked 30 frames a second at native 4K. Like that was the big like jaw-dropping thing. And from what I gathered from skipping around on I watched, that was the second video. I don't know what the first one went into, but the interesting thing was that it seems like the Xbox One S, the normal one,
the base,
non-fancy, was the worst.
Yeah, by
like
far.
Of all four console versions they have there between Xbox and PlayStation, that the the Xbox had both the best and the worst
Yeah.
performers.
Well, remember when the Xbox and X and PS4 came out, or the Xbox One? It's like the differences were like kind of small. I mean, we kind of knew that the PS4 was a little bit ahead, but now looking these latter gen games, like the Xbox at One S, whatever the original one, is way behind. I think this is locked at 720p. I don't think it goes higher than like
It's not
720p or
that
something.
bad. It's like 900 with some
Did they say 720 on there?
stuff.
All right, maybe 720 sometimes, but yeah, and then the frame rate at some points is like 24, 26, like in a busy town and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
so it's
Yeah, not
it's
good.
just, it's not being a technical person, I'm like, there's probably some kind of explanation for this, but it's like, wow, how is the difference that stark? Whereas
Yeah,
it doesn't seem to be nearly as big of a difference between like the PlayStation versions, or the Pro is better, but they're both sandwiched in the middle of the pack together.
yeah. So PS4 is obviously better than Xbox One, and then the Pro. I thought the Pro actually did not look great. I mean, especially compared to the X, it does not. I thought because and he was saying
They're always zooming in on
yeah.
the things, and so the native 4K one is always going to look better when you're zooming in 50%.
Yeah, obviously. But I think he was saying that the it actually up reses or something like that. It uses the checkerboard up res or something like. But I thought it looked actually pretty muddy. So again, maybe that's just a YouTube
I mean,
video.
generally,
But
like the checkerboard system and the various like scaling and stuff like um, will always kind of result in that slightly muddier image. And when it doesn't, it usually has artifacts. But this is a lot of stuff that you kind of have to train your eye to detect anyway. And why would
yeah,
you want to train your eye to detect the flaws? So.
yeah. Unless you're these guys. Yeah, I mean, I have a probe, so I mean, obviously the Xbox One X is way more powerful than that. But and
Did
then
they
also
ever get into if there was PS4 Pro enhancements for 1080 displays?
like the super scaling. Oh, you mean like better frame rate or like boost mode or something like that?
Or
If you turn it down,
maybe-
yeah, I don't know. I don't think he really went into that. Yeah, if you turn off super sampling or something like that in boost mode, yeah, I don't think he went into
so
that.
it happens.
Yeah, I think that's for old games that aren't optimized for pro, and I think most games these days are optimized for pro. I think maybe.
But I mean, boost mode is that's what boost mode is for. But like a lot of times, like with Horizon, when you're playing on a 1080 screen, you can choose between a frame rate focused mode and
Oh, really?
a visual enhancements mode.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he didn't say
So
anything about that. So you think he would have? You would imagine, but all right.
Guess we'll find out.
Probably.
Now that I've got a Pro, it's very frustrating how little documentation there is on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Like, what's the difference? Thank God for
Mhm.
Digital Foundry at all. So, all right. So there you go. All right. We're not done with Red Dead 2. A couple days ago, I don't know if this is Wednesday or Tuesday, Jason Schreier from Kotaku dropped a fairly lengthy piece about Red Dead 2's crunch. And of course, we talked about this last week, but he'd actually been working on this months, if not weeks, if not months before. And he said he talked to over 90 former and current employees. And actually, a very fascinating article, and I recommend everyone check it out. I have some tidbits that I kind of pulled out. Did you get a chance to read this?
That's not the original 100-hour one, right?
No, that's
Okay.
because
No,
they.
I don't think I have actually read this one.
Yeah,
then.
so the one of the Hausers was doing PR and mentioned it to like more of a mainstream thing, like we've been working on this so hard, we've been putting 100 hours and blah blah, and of course everyone knee jerk reacted, and then
Well, a weird thing about that was that then when he was backtracking, he was like, "Oh, I just meant the senior writing team," and so that kind of just raised the question in my mind: is like, what is the senior writing team doing at that late stage of the game? Like,
well,
because it's one of those things. Like, if you make new dialogue or you change dialogue or something, Like you got to have the guys come in and record that, or you have to do more mocap for like a new cutscene, and like that seems like something that you're not going to be doing at the tail end of development.
Well, that's exactly what the article tackles.
Mm.
And in fact, that is what's going on. These Hauser guys basically have 1,000 people doing whatever they want with these video games, and they're making these crazy late stage changes to like the story and the system and all that stuff. And of course, when you got a game this huge and all that, that's going to happen. But there was an anecdote in the story about how during the cutscenes they decided to add black bars
Yeah,
to the bottom.
I heard something about that. Yeah.
And that's something like, oh yeah, you just zoom in, put black bars, no problem. But no, it takes people weekends to fix that because you need to reframe everything and blah blah blah. I'm sure you can imagine how much you got to do. So my thing is like, okay, first of all, why weren't there black bars in the beginning when you guys were prototyping this crap?
Common video game trope of like, all right, you're in a cutscene now, so it's got letterboxing to let you know.
Yeah, and then oh, sorry, go ahead.
Like they didn't want to do that, and then decided they needed to in the end, and who knows?
And then number two, isn't someone be like, "Yo, if we do that, it's going to take us, cost us over $20,000, and people are going to have to stay over blah 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 hours." Oh, okay, never mind then. I mean, isn't anyone saying no to these guys?
These don't sound like, hey, never mind kind of guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So again, it seems like they need better managers. Basically, just a couple other.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, so if the senior writing team is you guys are doing 100-hour weeks, but it's like everything you do as the senior writing team has like ripple effects throughout the rest of the team.
Yeah, trickling down.
So you guys should maybe not be working so hard because you're just making a lot more work for everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. And if this was a movie, you could just like reshoot a scene instead of spend 100 hours recording everything. So a couple other instances. A lot of different opinions. People were saying, saying like, yeah, we worked a ton of time. People saying, well, it wasn't crazy. Other people were saying there's this appearance of work that they want, and then this corporate culture that they have there. They like to see butts in the seats. They like to see people at their desk, not necessarily doing stuff, or not necessarily working on the game, but like in the office, like doing stuff. So that may be
like
part of the hours.
Office.
Yeah. Everyone pretty much said that they loved working on the game, saying, and they, this is sounding a little bit too much like a, cult, but saying it's really is something new and art, and genre defining and all this stuff. And then we've heard about the Lincoln Studio, which is, I guess, primarily the Q&A, of the whole whatever.
It sounds like Q&A tends to be like the guys who get the shafts hardcore anyway, like just generally in the industry.
It's I emphasize with them, but they're playing video games. And listen, I understand they're doing a lot of stuff and it's stressful and you're working long hours, but I mean, all right, you're not digging ditches, okay? You're not cleaning windows, all right?
Well, what if they're doing QA on Ditch Digger Simulator 2000?
Oh yeah. Well, on the ditch digging mission on GTA or Red Dead.
There's almost certainly going to be a ditch digging mini game in this game.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also kind of an interesting tidbit is that so the company knew, and this was all before the 100 Hours comment even came out, the company had knew Jason was working on the story, and they actually invited him to their New York office and kind of set up this almost like this weird teleconference with different employees from different offices of their because they have a bunch of different branches all over the world. And they were a little surprised.
The Hausers are really good bosses.
Yeah,
and they treat us very well.
Yeah, and they're blinking Morse code, like, get me out of here, and all that stuff. Yeah, and then the HR and whatever the higher-ups that he was talking to were surprised that he thought these people were not being completely candid and all that stuff. And, people felt like they had to be anonymous. And it's like, okay, all right, obviously, people are not going to talk poorly about their job, and put their names on it.
Didn't some people actually want to talk to him anonymously because they were afraid of that, that they had positive things to say.
Yeah.
But they still didn't want to go on the record because they're like, if I go on the record, then people are going to be like, oh, well, he was told to say nice things. So
yeah, and that's another part of it.
We've entered this weird universe where the anonymous source is somehow more authentic.
Yeah, and yeah, people don't want to be accused of being a shill, basically. So yeah, so. Anyways, just a really interesting article, and I definitely recommend everyone. It's definitely a complicated issue, and
Well, and then getting back to Sonic the Hedgehog and capitalism. Um, this is not an issue that any of us are going to solve through our individual
our
like.
podcast, really, Frank? You don't think so? We can
Well,
solve it?
no, our podcast definitely to solve the problem.
All right, good.
But like our individual game purchases, like I don't believe in the voting with your wallet like concept because you know you'd need a lot of people. Like you would have to organize something. So unless you're going to organize a Red Dead Redemption boycott, just buy it if you want to. Don't buy it if you don't want to. But that's not the way to change the industry. It's like I know everyone like no one likes the people yelling shame, 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 shame. But that's basically the only thing that actually works these days, unless we had unions, which we don't. So
well, exactly. I mean, I guarantee you, like a bunch of these articles that came up, it definitely is going to change the culture. I think they're going to look inward a little bit and be like, yeah, maybe this is a little bit crazy. But also, my whole thing on like, oh, should I buy the game or not? Not me personally. I'm not going to buy the game, but I'm not buying the game. It has nothing to do with the hours or whatever. That's my point. It's like, okay, listen, complain about the hours or whatever, and don't buy the game. But don't complain about the hours and buy the game. All right, don't be a hypocrite here. All right, and then all these news.
Well, I'm gonna complain about the hours, and I'm gonna buy the game.
All right. Well, you're a hypocrite, Frank. Chris Frank hypocrites. No, I'm just kidding.
Like I just said, like your individual purchase does not like, and what's the point of punishing the people getting the bonuses? That's the other thing. Is like, if you say, hey, I'm not gonna buy this game because you guys are pushing your employees too hard, well, you're just mainly screwing over the employees anyway because they're a lot of these guys are working these crazy hours and their salaries, so they're not getting overtime. In the hopes that like they just got to stick it through and get the mega bonus that like this game is definitely going to net them. Yeah. Because like that's kind of their thing is like if you get a big bonus if you're like working there the year that a game gets released. And so apparently. Did they get into this in the article? Apparently, Max Payne 3 was just a total death march, and they were all just like, "Oh, yeah, they mentioned their bonuses." And then everyone was very unhappy when the game didn't do very well. They didn't
get the bonus. That's the last time we do that. Yeah, I mean, I guess. But on the other hand, what was I gonna say? I totally forgot. Oh yeah. I totally forgot. That was a good point. I'm sure. All right. Something about don't complain about it. Oh yeah, here we go. I got it. Here it came back to me, Frank. Don't complain about the heavy hour workload, and then call a developer lazy. How about that? If you ever call the developer lazy, you can never complain about the crunch.
There you go.
How about that? Yeah. Can we all agree on that?
Well, I don't think anyone's ever called a developer lazy and like known what they were talking about. Yep. Like unless you're playing like a Steam asset flip where it's like, oh, that's Unity Zombie number 375, and the hitbox is like 3 feet to the left, and I mean the actual lazy devs out there are really easy to spot, and for the most part their games don't even like make it onto your radar unless you're watching a video about how bad they are.
Yeah, and what do these people think? Like, hey, should we fix the combat? No, nah. So let's just take a nap instead. I'm lazy, feeling lazy. All right. Okay. So crunch. All right. There you go. All right. Well, speaking of some lazy developers, DICE. No, I'm just joking. No, but here's bad news. Battlefield 5. People still remember this game. Battlefield 5, which is coming out November, about a month from now. The Battle Royale will be delayed. Not even delayed. It's going to come out in March 2019. So in a world where Call of Duty Black Ops already launched a month earlier, and Blackout, the Battle Royale mode, is taking the world by storm. Battle Royale coming out in March for Battlefield 5. That's, yeah.
Apparently you can throw basketballs at people in Blackout.
Yeah. Although, talking about spending more time in a game and having second thoughts, I've been hearing a lot of Blackout complaints, like saying the hit registry with the snipers and all that stuff are screwed up, and like the tick rate and all this stuff. So that I guess you can either rush your mode out and have a bunch of stuff like that, or take your time. I guess with Battle Royale.
Well, and is Battlefield 5 gonna have a single player campaign?
Yes, it will.
Well, I mean, but there you go, right there.
Yeah.
You know, they like you can't do
everything.
because Call of Duty was like, all right, well, we're gonna have traditional multiplayer, zombies, and a battle royale mode. How are you gonna do all that? Well, we're just gonna like ditch the campaign because you guys never play them anyway. So
yeah. I wonder like how many. I mean, EA must have data because like Battlefield 1 had missions. They must have data showing that people actually played them, or maybe they just like hearing reviewers talk about like, oh yeah, the missions are actually pretty cool, and just for like a bullet point. But you're gonna spend that much money on bullet points? I don't know. I don't know. All right. Well, that's all the news I had. Frank, did you have anything for us this week?
Thought I did. I don't remember what it is anymore.
Is it a?
Yeah, I got nothing.
Is a pithy comment about the current world?
No, I'm all out of pith right now.
Well, I have to take a pith actually right now. So why don't we take a break, and we'll be back with the games we've been playing. All right, let me just. I think I.
You actually have to go take a piss?
All right. Well, no, I'm gonna check my window real quick. I don't know if I left it open or not.
Hello out there, YouTube. If Chris forgot to pause this, I don't know if he did. I'm just gonna be looking at my phone here. So you guys do you. We'll be back in a minute.
All right, should we continue?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, I guess mini news. Alan Wake is back, baby.
What, is a sequel or something?
No, just the game was delisted for a long time.
Oh.
And apparently it is back on some platforms.
Sweet.
But
sweet.
I'm just holding out for that Control game by Remedy. That looks sweet.
Yeah.
Shades Max Payne.
All right. Well, we are back. Welcome onto the other side of the show. And I will go quickly first and talk about Arena Value. I'm not going to talk about a MOBA because I know people hate hearing about MOBA strategy and all that crap. I know I always used to before I actually played a MOBA. But
yeah,
I just want.
Here's a bunch of proper nouns that you don't understand.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just going to talk about the friend system in this game because it's a little crazy. So Arena Valor, of course, this is this huge mobile game in China and the United States as well. And it's actually a free-to-play game, and you actually don't need Nintendo Online to play it because it's such a huge game. They're going to be like, you don't have to pay the $20. Just go ahead and play online free, just like Fortnite. So as a result, the friend system is like not connected to the Nintendo friend system or whatever. So if you play a match, with a team and you do fairly well, or you have a good comeback, or you kick ass, and you're like, wow, those guys are pretty good, or that guy was pretty good. As far as I know, I cannot find an easy way to like find people I've played with, like a history list of people I've played with, and like able to add them as friends. And then when I back out to the dashboard to the Nintendo, OS, it doesn't show up as you recently played with. That only shows your Nintendo friends that play Nintendo games that you recently played with. So I'm not sure how to. I've gone through all the goddamn menus. I cannot find how to like add a player like that. What you have to do is you have to type in the player's name and search for it. And if it does not match exactly the gamer tag, including capitalization, so if you don't capitalize it, and it should be capitalized, it's not going to find it. And then you find it, and you send a friend request. Now, again, so what I'm resorting to doing is before the match starts up and it shows all the players right loading up to the game. It shows everyone's gamer tags and all that. I'm taking a screenshot from from my Switch, and then I am taking a photo of that screenshot from my phone and then typing those names into my Switch to find these friends. And then I've probably sent out like 10 friend requests. I've only actually gotten one like received, like accepted. So I don't know if these friend requests go into kind of the weird like mailbox section of the this game's got weird Chinese like menu logic or something like that where it's like way too many options and stuff like that. So yeah, just it'd be nice if I if you just look for the history of the people you played with and just be able to send invites to them, but it's just a little bit ridiculous. All right, but otherwise, especially with like baseball, the World Series coming on, and I mean with Thursday Night Football on tonight, I'll just turn on sports and just like play the game handheld, and I can look up sometimes and watch sports and still hear stuff, and it's just enjoyable time. I'm waiting for Battlefield. I'm just kind of I'm not playing anything right now, Frank. It's kind of annoying right now. So. Nothing really fancies me, catches my eye. So, all right, what do you got? What do you got for us?
Not a whole heck of a lot. I kind of lost interest in Hollow Knight. And I think it's because, playing it on PS4, like, all the DLCs are just there. Like, the game just came out with everything. So by the end of the game, it's just kind of feeling bloated. Like, I'm at the end of the game. Like, I gotta go, fight another boss. I don't know how much exactly is left story-wise. And I'm kind of worried about hitting point of no returns at this point of like, I guess I'm done kind of thing. Because like all the DLCs tend to be hidden in like weird areas. I had to look one of them up. And I'm like, I didn't think to, keep walking past that one wall, in that specific area over there. And like it unlocks like kind of a mission thing where I have to go find certain spots throughout the map and fight a guy there, and then go back and I'm like, this would have been way better to have unlocked, when I was actively exploring the world instead of getting kind of sick of backtracking. And now it's like, oh hey, you found a DLC. Want to backtrack a whole fucking bunch? Okay. So yeah, it just kind of seems like the pacing is a little off. So it's just kind of slowly drained my will to continue on, which is a shame because it was a really fun game at first. So I moved on to a different DLC, the Spider-Man. So this has kind of been buried. Spider-Man was such a huge game, but it was a huge game from last month. Get with the program, Grandpa.
By the way, I think I had this on my news stories, but I don't think I actually sent this or added this or whatever. But Spider-Man was the number 1 first-person game.
Or first party?
Yeah, there you go. Spider-Man on PlayStation 4 made more money. Well, there's a bunch of stories I totally forgot here. What the hell happened? Okay. I forgot about the Bethesda thing, too. Made more money its first month on the market than any PlayStation exclusive in the nearly 24 history of the brand across all 6 core pieces of PlayStation software, which sounds pretty cool. But then if you think about it, like how many mainstream, like crazy big Uncharted, Last of Us are big mainstream games, but not Spider-Man mainstream, right? So
all of those games had to build their own fandom. They didn't have the pre-baked one, in there. So
yeah,
that was a really good get for Sony. The money men are very happy, I think.
Yeah, there may be a sequel. I think, Frank. It may be possible.
Well, with these DLCs, so I started the first one. It's the Heist, and it's Black Cat focused. And I like the way that this works much better than Hollow Knight, where it's kind of like every time a DLC gets added, the game just gets bigger, and whatever the new content is just kind of rolled into the main game. Whereas the way Spider-Man is doing it is that basically the DLC is like a mini campaign. So you actually have to switch out, and storyline wise, it just takes place after. So I would not recommend switching over in the middle of the main game, but you could. So you basically like you switch over and it kind of it has some overlap with side content in the main game, like the collectibles and stuff will still be there, but it has its own like set of collectibles, its own set of story missions. It's basically a mini sequel that only slightly overlaps with like the core game. Just in that, like a lot of the collectibles will still be there if you hadn't got them already, which is really cool. And the way this game is, where it's just kind of like it's just a really fun game to play. Like it hasn't really bothered me that I've unlocked everything and like the XP means nothing anymore. Because it's just there's so many gadgets and moves in combat, and the traversal is so fun that it's fun to just have an excuse to dive back in. Because I actually got the platinum trophy on this game. It's actually a relatively easy platinum. Like some of the more obnoxious tasks the game has you do don't actually count towards the platinum, like finding all of the newspapers. But so 100% completion and the platinum are not the same thing, I guess.
So that's a pretty good testament to then the quality of the game. If you've already pretty much done everything in the game almost, and still want to go back in for DLC. When's the last time you said that?
I don't remember like at all.
Yep.
So the way it's set up is like they could just keep doing this forever, or as long as the audience would be able to not get sick of being at the kind of the end game of the tech tree for so long. Like you're not unlocking things anymore, because really all there is for unlockables is like 3 ugly new suits. I'm gonna stick with the other ones. But yeah, it's basically it's just new story content, new missions, new side missions, new collectibles, kind of zoned off in its own little thing, and it kind of makes me hopeful for the future of this like Marvel video game shared universe they're gonna try to make, because it seems like they have a really good framework to start adding new characters into, and the big, like they could just keep doing new Spider-Man episodes basically forever of like, all right, now you're gonna fight Mysterio, now you're gonna fight storyline wise, it's basically like, and here's the next bullshit that Spider-Man has to put up with because he's a comic book superhero, and like there's always something else coming around the corner. Though the stakes are somewhat lower, obviously, than the core game.
Yeah. Well, I always thought this was a good idea that I had, or like a long time ago. But like Arkham Knight and the Batman games and Spider-Man, why don't they like recreate classic comic book story arcs? I don't know anything about Spider-Man, but I'm sure there's like classic stories that get told over. Like year one for Batman or whatever. And like why not do that? And you don't even have to do like crazy cutscenes. You just like have an animated, cell shaded cutscene or whatever. It doesn't have to be crazy with voice acting, right? So it'd be fairly cheap, I would imagine. So
they've got full animated cutscenes in this and the whole shebang. So
did you I'm sorry, did you pay for this, or was this part of your pro pack with the DLC?
This did come with the bundle, and I am still like, they document these things so poorly. Because I was trying to figure out if I had it or not, because I remembered when I got the game, it knew that I had the bundle somehow, and like so it gave me a bunch of pre-order nonsense right off the bat. And then I was like, I swear it said something about getting like at least the first chapter of the DLC, and sure enough, in the case of the game, there was a pamphlet with another code that I hadn't put into PlayStation Store yet. I did that, and then it gave me another bunch of bullshit, but for some reason did not start the download for the heist. So I had to jump through a lot of hoops to actually get it downloading. So it was included, but I don't know if I have the season pass or just the heist. Like I haven't been able to figure that out yet.
I guess we'll find out next DLC. I guess.
Yeah, next DLC.
Stay tuned.
I'll let you guys know. But I'll probably, if not, I'll probably get it.
Yeah. Well, sweet. Spider-Man, good game, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much all there is to talk about. Is like it's just more Spider-Man, and Spider-Man is a good enough game to really warrant just like here, give me more.
Have you?
I mean, and obviously that's a personal taste thing. So
Have you restarted and tried New Game Plus? I heard it's pretty fun to like go back and be a Spider God early in the game.
I have not yet. I think I like that, I'm kind of holding that off for if I do ever get like jonesing. Like I'm gonna wait until like I really want to play Spider-Man at some point down the line and don't have like a DLC or whatever.
A couple of years now.
Yeah.
On your PS6, is your cloud save going to be around? Probably not, because you stopped paying for PS Plus. That's why. The world we live in. All right, there you go. That's it. That's all you got.
Yeah, that's all I've been up to.
Sweet. All right. Well, that's the games we've been playing. Thank you so much for listening. As always, check us out on YouTube and Twitter, Chris Frank Games, at Stats1 and at Narf Black. Sorry, at Narf Black. KNARF Black. All right. Okay. All right. So, for Frank.
This episode brought to you by Pretentious Budweiser.
Jim Beam, what? How does that taste, by the way? Does it taste like someone spilt
it's just a
whiskey in there?
Well, it's aged in bourbon barrel. Like that's apparently that's. I mean, that's been a thing for a long time, but like it's reached Budweiser level. Like that's like a thing now that we're gonna make pretentious. And I was really curious because I'm like, why is it still Budweiser? Because they own so many microbreweries that they just don't tell you that you're actually drinking Budweiser or Anheuser-Busch.
Well, I'm sure Budweiser owns Jim Beam, right? I'm assuming that. Why not,
Probably.
right? Yeah, so they probably. I was gonna say, why even purchase the Jim Beam logo for your beer? Why not just say, hey, it's whiskey or bourbon or whatever flavored things, and not even worry about the name? But
Jim Beam, so you specifically know it's been aged in shitty bourbon barrels.
Exactly. All right. Well, there you go. It's been Chris Frank Games for Frank Wyatt. My name is Chris Stotts. See you guys next week.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.